Hi, I'm Joyce Rockwood, and I'm really excited to share a very special guest with you today. This is my friend Robin Steinfeld. Hey, Robin.
Hi, so great to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for making the time, Robin. You know, if you were just catching up with us, you might not know who Robin is. So I'd just like to let you know she's a New York City-based entertainment executive working with top talent in the industry for over 20 years. She has 30 years experience in health and wellness as a holistic health educator and wellness advocate. And she also has a master's in health science and education. So a lot of credentials going on here. And she's married to an amazing professional chef. And she's also the mom of the amazing Jack, young boy son. How old's Jack now?
He's going to be 13. Time is a flying.
So Robin and I have known each other 5 years, and Robin and I work together, and she's actually one of my mentors for essential oils and health science. And, you know, Robin, you've always been someone who's been so passionate about using natural forms of healthcare. But what's really interesting about you is that you didn't always experience the level of health that you enjoy today. So I'd love for you to share with the audience your backstory of growing up and what your health and your life looked like before essential oils and really before doTERRA came into your life.
Thank you. First of all, Joyce, you're such an incredible inspiration in health and wellness and caring for people in your audience. So, thank you for having me and to be able to share the story. I was sort of like I always saw myself, and I think others in my family, friends at school saw me as like kind of like a sickly child. I was out of school a lot. I was very, very ill, even as a very young child at the age of 2 and 3, very unusual symptoms. A lot of issues where it was like, at 5 years old, why am I showing, symptoms of arthritis, not being able to use my hands, not being able to concentrate, massive migraines, lots of other, anything that went around. I was sick all the time. I was in and out of the hospital. They knew me there when they were like, hey, okay, there she is, Robin and her mom, and what's going on this week. My fevers would be extremely high all the time. I was very prone to high fevers. If a common cold could get me to 104 or 5 very quickly. And as years progressed, because, this was in a time where it was like, you had a sore throat or a little cough or even a major cough for that matter, it was an immediate, write the prescription, take antibiotics. And because I was sick so often and antibiotics were seen as this, amazing opportunity to take care of oneself and fight infection, was literally constantly on antibiotics, and which we know now really can and destroys your immune system. I know you speak a lot about the gut and microbiome, and it's the center of our immunity. And, we didn't know that then. We did not know. My came from a family that really trusted doctors and believed that modern medicine and Western medicine was always the way to go. And there wasn't a lot of instinct happening, like maybe, wow, she's getting sicker, not better. I just kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and a lot of more and more neurological problems. And, later on in life, at the age of 17, I came down with a very, very unusual infection. Nobody could figure out what was going on. I couldn't swallow. I landed in the emergency room. They quarantined me. They could not figure it out. And coincidentally, that's the time about that year, in the late 80s, mid to late 80s, where Lyme disease was becoming more in the forefront of issues with, vermin and insect spread of disease. And it became clear, they were like, maybe we should run this test. You live in the Northeast, there might be something there, to take a look at. And at that point, at the age of 17, I was legitimately diagnosed with Lyme. And what they ended up discovering was that because of the load of bacteria in my body and the various Lyme infections, that I had been infected much longer than this infection. This was just a continuation of abuse of this bacteria that just kept continuing to evolve, and then the antibiotics were really suppressing my immune system, not allowing my body to do the work. And, you know, needless to say, still at that time, the answer in the late 80s for Lyme disease was immediate antibiotic protocols. And that does make sense. And there's a time and a place for that, absolutely. But I had already been infected with Lyme, and the degenerative disease, dis-ease in my body kept continuing. And I had always loved essential oils. I had always been fascinated by flowers and plants, as you can see behind. I mean, just always want to be surrounded by it. I just feel like mentally, emotionally, even spiritually, there's something about the connection to nature and our connection to plants and flowers, just even down to the oxygen they deliver us for the breathing, and the fact that we give them back the carbon dioxide they need. There's just clearly an intimacy there beyond just the magic, right? It's very real, and there's a lot of science there. And so I began to kind of like always want to touch flowers, and immediately I was always a person that loved aroma. And so, you know, my natural inclination to move into looking at essential oils was just like, you know, very clear. And I just wrapped my arms around it and loved everything about using smell and being around flowers.
Yeah.
And so I kind of dug really deep into essential oils and used them aromatically for a very long time. Because that's really what we did here in the US. We used essential oils as healing tools more for, you know, it was seen more as emotional health, you know, breathing them in. And I did that, and it helped me a lot, because when you have Lyme disease, it can lead to other autoimmune diseases and other types of medications you're now on. And you kind of don't know anymore, like whether they're side effects or, you know, from being on so many medications, or if you're really sick because of this dis-ease in the body and this imbalance. But essential oils always brought me back to center in some way, just even the aromatic component. So I loved understanding them and working with them and using them in that way. And it was healing, very, very healing, until I found doTERRA, and it's a brand of essential oil that it wasn't just about aromatic anymore. It was really about using them in, you know, 3 application methods that were, because of the quality of the oils, allowed me to even use them, you know, as, you know, natural ways to boost my immune system and support me, and complementary to working with the doctors that I was working with.
Yeah. And, you know, as someone who'd been using them for so long and now finding a different quality, they were really influential, because from what I know of you, you were on a number of different pharmaceutical grade meds, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
how many
I
were you?
think at the maximum I was at about 17 drugs. And again, every drug, I just was getting much more sick and very strange symptoms. Yeah.
That's almost unfathomable. I'm trying to imagine what it's like to go through the day having to take all of these different medications at different times and dealing with all the side effects.
It's very overwhelming. It's overwhelming, I think, for anybody who's not. I mean, our health is everything, and we don't have anything else without our health, you know. And it's then what happens is it's not just the physical part of it. It's what begins to happen with your mind and your emotions, your heart, and not feeling like you're functioning like everybody else, and trying to cope with that. The stress, we all have stress now, you know, compounding it with, you know, with health concerns, it's that, you know, are chronic, they're not going away, it's disconcerting. And for me, finding essential oils as a major tool in healing was just, it was, you know, very empowering, very empowering.
I would love for you to just share any of the other struggles that you were going through outside of childhood when you went into taking all of those meds. And was there weight gain? Was there exhaustion, fatigue? Like, what were some of the other quote unquote diagnosis? You know, not that you and I live in that world, but a lot of people listening live in that world, and they can really relate when they hear certain labels, right? So I'm just wondering if you wanted to share.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, I kind of mentioned that at 17 there was kind of like this diagnosis, but as I became an adult, I was just continued to be sickly. And later on in life, as new symptoms developed, and I would see individual doctors, you know, in their areas of specialty. So for example, I had lost the vision in my left eye. I literally woke up one morning and I just didn't see anymore.
Wow.
And this is a common inflammatory problem in people with usually autoimmune disease, particularly multiple sclerosis. So for a year, I was treated for MS. This is now really in my adult life, even after I already had my son, and things were getting a lot worse, not better.
How long did
And
you lose your vision for?
my vision is not at 100% at this point, because what happens is that literally the nerve kind of the optic nerve in an MS or in any kind of neurodegenerative disease, you see that basically the nerve starts to, for lack of a better word, shred, and now information isn't able to pass. So that shredding doesn't really necessarily ever have the ability to heal. It's very hard to heal nerves. But I was able to support my vision, support the neurological symptoms to the point now where it is not black and blind. I am able to see shadows and have perception and sense of movement. And the body's an amazing thing. You can actually, your other eye, just like
Right.
other organs, will overcompensate and really
Other
take
lung.
on. It's incredible what it'll do. But the fact that I was able to get back some of that vision, and that was really due to, because I did not get better as I was being treated for the MS. It was steroids and more antibiotics. It was actually using the essential oils that I applied topically, not ever inside my eye, but around the eye socket and around the back of my ear and the back of my neck, that over time allowed to my body to have a healthier inflammatory response. And therefore, having this thing called optic neuritis, is the diagnosis for it, became like more manageable, because I was able to work with my body, not add on. Because at this point, with so many synthetic chemicals in my body, with all the medications, my body was just shutting down. It couldn't even use medication anymore at that point. So when I introduced more natural substances that would support healthy inflammatory responses, literally I started to get the white vision back, where you could actually start to see the sun come through and see light come through, and that's where you could start to see images again. It's not perfect, but to not have the blindness is, I'm not legally blind. I mean, that really was huge for me. And the physicians were really blown away by that progress that I had specific to the vision. There were other things. My whole GI, my whole stomach, my digestion was completely off. I would either be very heavy or lose weight, for no good reason. Nobody could figure out why my weight fluctuated so much. It didn't really matter what I ate, even when I was at healthiest,
Yeah.
eating low calories. It just was very, very bizarre. My metabolism was off. My body was just not in what we call homeostasis and balance, where the body could do the work for itself.
So Lyme, autoimmune disease, chronic fatigue, I think you've told me.
Chronic fatigue for sure. I definitely, even trying to get pregnant originally was challenging and took time. And, we needed support with, changing the chemistry of my body, because I had destroyed so much of my hormonal balance. It wasn't just about Lyme disease and having this infection. It becomes other autoimmune issues and other dis-ease in the body, that every system was affected. My mood, I had mood disorders. I think some of that came from being on medication like steroids, because it hyped me up. And then when you come down from steroids, you're not hyped up. You're quite the feelings of depressed, and sort of like, it's very hard to like come down off that. So then other medications started to come, because I couldn't sleep, or I was having trouble getting up in the morning. And that's where we started to see really compounding to the 17 max that I was on, even up until 7 years ago.
And it's so, it's no surprise, and I know you know this as well as someone with a master's degree in health science and education, that every single thing that you've mentioned symptomatically relates to gut health, from hormones to fertility to sleep to mood. So you get to see right here, Robin's a really shining example of someone who was really in the mire, and then we're gonna talk about what's happened for her over the past several years. I'm just curious, you think you know someone. I had no idea about your eye.
Oh,
I had no idea that you were still dealing with that, and that was even like, well, not still dealing with it. I didn't know that was an issue. I didn't know that you had lost your sight. So how many years ago was that incident when you woke up?
I would have to say that that was actually the incident that broke the camel's back. It was like the last straw, right? Because to lose my vision, it was like I get used to the headaches, and I got used to the aches and pains when you're from the age of 2 and you're dealing with that. It's amazing how you do adjust. But the vision was really scary,
How many
especially
years
as some.
ago?
So this would have been about 7-8 years ago.
Wow.
And that's when there was that year of being treated for multiple sclerosis, and when I wasn't getting better.
Yeah.
And then other symptoms came back. It then turned into, well, maybe you should go see a rheumatologist, and that rheumatologist says, we're going to treat you for lupus. And I said, that's it. Something's not right here. This is crazy. Like, how do these MS is one thing, lupus is another. Like, who's driving this, this boat right now, or this car? Like, I realized I needed to take the front seat at this point.
Right. So what I'm hearing you say, Robin, is that your health and all of these issues that you were having were in some degree pouring into other areas of your life. Like, how was your health, or the lack thereof, affecting you? Well, you mentioned fertility, right? But your work, marriage, like relationships, how was this pouring out over or spilling out?
I mean, it affects everything. It affects everything that you do, and absolutely, work was difficult. I mean, when I lost my vision, there was so much time in the hospital getting treatment, and not being able to see and adjust to that simultaneously. Work wasn't easy. I mean, I thought there might be a point where I may need to step out and take disability. I mean, I didn't know what would happen. It was very frightening, and as I described before, the emotional distress and the mood, and the mood function was just very suppressed. And that affects me as a mother. It affects me as a wife, as a friend to people. My relationships, I felt more and more isolated. Just even walking around, my friends used to be like, you're so lazy. You take the bus everywhere. You hail a cab, like walk to the subway or take a walk. And, I didn't really, I was embarrassed. I just said, okay, I'm lazy. It was just hard for me to walk long distances. It hurt.
Yeah.
But I was so used to it and I just lived my life. You just kind of function. You just kind of adapt. We all adapt. But that doesn't mean we have to accept it, right? There's other ways to look at things and perspectives too. And that's really where the shift came, was like this awakening. Like, wait a minute, I want to look at this from another angle. This can't be the only way and thing to do.
You also lost a significant amount of weight, didn't you?
I did. There was a time where and nobody could figure this out, but I think it just leads back to the issues I was having altogether with digestion, and my body had reached the highest capacity for synthetics, meaning toxins that were in my body. So for example, I was losing weight so rapidly because every morning and almost every meal I had, I would regurgitate. I could not hold food down. And so therefore I was getting absolutely no nutrition, and then landed in the hospital for heart palpitations, for such rapid weight loss and vomiting and dehydration. And again, because at that point I had been, working with a doctor on lupus, they were like, oh, it must be this. And I go down a rabbit hole in the hospital for a whole week, them trying to figure something out that had absolutely nothing to do with my diagnosis. And it was one that was, part of the beginning of the end to a new door opening.
Right. Now, there was that time in your life where you were losing a lot of weight from that perspective, but there was also, wasn't there a later time in your life when you had, unfortunately, through all of the meds and the microbiome was so imbalanced, also gained a significant amount, but
Absolutely.
then was able to lose that? Wasn't that
Absolutely. Very, very most of my life, I think, because what I think we've learned now is that weight gain is not always about eating. obviously it's what you put in, what you get out, right? We understand that. But a lot of weight gain is what we're holding on to in toxins that are in our body. Our fat cells get bigger because guess what? Our fat cells, we now understand that, the fat cells are the holding tanks of the stuff the rest of the body doesn't want. That's why it's in areas, like our thighs and our, butt and, our lower gut, because it's trying to move away from the lungs and the heart and the things that keep us, breathing and the heart beating and all those things. It makes sense. But weight gain could be emotional stress, because the hormones that are released when you're under stress puff you up. It makes sense, right? Because, we're animals just like every other creature. And when we need to be in fight or flight, you get puffy, right? If you're going to fight, you want to look big, you want to look strong. So you're going to puff up. And the body naturally wants to do that to protect and to be puffier. And, but that inflammation, we now also know that inflammation is the, the root cause of so much dis-ease in the body, even emotionally.
Wasn't it something like 50 something pounds or how?
Oh, absolutely. I had lost 50 pounds, and I had done it, when I lost that weight, it was done very slowly and in a healthy way. And I really changed my diet. I also discovered that I needed to get rid of inflammatory foods, gluten and sugar and dairy and things like that. I know you talk about a lot about the eating habits, and we are what we eat, and to stand behind that. That really, really helped. But I also, at that point, was using some essential oils. Like I was putting, lemon oil in my drinking water. I used to love to squeeze lemons, but I began to understand that using lemon oil, which we know is such a wonderful supporting detoxifier in the body. That's why people love to put lemon, people use it all over the world in their diet for cleansing purposes.
Yeah.
But lemon oil is like, it's like the heart of the plant. That's where all that immune system of that plant lives. So it's like, oh yeah, and when I learned that, particularly with doTERRA, that I could, ingest some of the oils that were safe, for, if you can eat a lemon, you should be able to use the lemon oil and essential oil.
Right.
That really, really helped my digestion.
Yeah.
Peppermint and anise and fennel and some of these amazing herbs and botanicals that just soothed my digestion.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And soon my body was able to equalize, and therefore I wasn't in need of all the other medications to, to try and recalibrate me, because it wasn't recalibrating me. It was just adding more toxins.
Exactly. So I have a couple more things I want to check in with you on. We have about 5 minutes. So you've mentioned doTERRA. You mentioned using essential oils, for many years, and then getting, exposed to or introduced to doTERRA. How did you get introduced to this new grade of oils? When did that happen for you? Was there a certain person in your life that was pinnacle?
Yeah, absolutely. Because like I said, I worked with oils and I love them. And I was very, I always believed that, like, I went by how it smelled, and I would use all different brands. When I had that epiphany about my health, I decided to see a medical doctor who was very interested in integrative perspective of health, and really looking at lifestyle medicine first and foremost, and then medication as needed. And one of the things that he really loved to work with, in addition to being a medical doctor, he also studied herbology and studied nutrition and studied functional medicine to really understand structure and function of the body and how nutrition plays a part. And he was the physician who really said, look, I know you love essential oils, but here's what I'm understanding, is that this is an area in the holistic and healing market, natural healing marketplace. It really requires substantiation of the quality of the essential oils and herbs and botanicals that people are taking in. It's really important. And there is this company that is newer on the scene that has scientists. This is backed by science, not just somebody who said, let's just have an aromatherapy company and, I'm going to grow lavender and I can press, and distill lavender and get oil. It was the first time that a company had come along that, like, for example, this physician realized there was value in looking at a particular brand because they were quantifying and qualifying the oils. And that made sense to me, because I did work with oils, and I knew intellectually that oils, a lot of oils on the bottle, it said, do not ingest. Most of the time it said, don't even put on topically, just smell it. And I would say to myself, well, if it's lemon, if it's peppermint, I mean, I can eat a peppermint leaf. And I used to say to myself, I don't really get it, but that was what was in the offering in essential oil marketplace. So this physician really opened my eyes to specific to doTERRA.
Yeah.
And I really looked at it because, like I said, I had thousands of dollars in oils and investments that I had made in my collection, and I loved it, and I would pick from all these brands. But I really, when I looked into it, I understood why doTERRA was really different and how they were actually sourcing the oils and testing the oils, and not just by their own company, but actually by third-party, research facilities and medical institutions. And that really changed my mind that I should really use this one particular brand because of the science behind it.
Yeah. And your healing journey, if you can wrap that up, I don't know if you
Sure.
can in like 2 minutes,
Yeah.
3 minutes, but where are you now? What have you been able to leave behind? Just if you can paint the incredible picture of your life now in the absence of struggle, what have you been able to accomplish?
I think what's been the most poignant discovery is the my self ability to tap into what's going on with me physically, emotionally, and say, what can I do today in my life that affects my health, changes the trajectory of what happens tomorrow and the next day and the next day, and that I really have control over that. And when you have control of something, you are empowered. And so when I took what I felt like my health into my own hands, and I listened to my body, and I really started to peel away the layers of this health crisis I was under. And then I understood that I could complement Western medicine with these botanicals and this support, particularly in the essential oils. I felt revived. I felt like I was living again. I felt like I had purpose, and I felt like I loved that I could share it with my family, and that I now as a mom was able to pass on knowledge that I was learning for myself in my family in a safe and effective way. And to me, that's everything, because as I said earlier, and we all know that health is everything. You don't have anything without your health.
Right. So no more meds.
No more meds. I mean, I'm on 0 medications at this point.
Amazing.
And I use my intuition more. I listen to my body, and I'm rotating. I change up. I love playing with the oils and using them. I love to say, from my experience, there's never been an essential oil overdose. I don't think anybody's ever died from an essential oil overdose.
Right.
You just got to learn. There's a few simple things you learn about using them and taking care of your body. And it's amazing how the body just falls into place. We have this incredible intuition in our body.
Yeah.
And if we just listen to it and live a little closer and more, in synergy with nature, I think we get what we need to be the healthiest and happiest, best version of ourselves.
And when we clear out the gunk,
our
gut instinct can really shine through. And that is one of the benefits of healing your body naturally from the inside out, is that you do get to work with your intuition and your guidance more lucidly. You become more decisive. So thank you for sharing that amazing journey. And
thank you.
I was just wondering, do you have any parting thoughts for anyone who might be watching this and is suffering right now the way you did or similarly, and is really looking to heal themselves naturally from the inside out?
I would say that there's always hope. There's always something. And it's not about perfection. It's about that using that intuition and really being present, because our health is what we are now and how it's going to affect that future. So, ask questions. The internet can be a scary thing. You go down and there's crazy negative stuff and it's hard to know. Right. But I think when you do some digging, you begin to see clearer pictures of that there is choice in health. there is choice in how, in the products that we consume and the things that we put around us, on us, in us, that compound over time. So I invite people to, you know, take a look at what you're putting in you and on you and around you every day that really might be adding to toxicity in your life.
Right.
And how can you maybe supplement in things that are going to be more complementary to supporting your body, not hindering it.
Thank you. And really creating new synergies.
Yes.
So really do.
Absolutely.
Well, Robin, I really, truly appreciate you sharing this incredible journey from, you know, havoc to health. Really, I mean, as a child suffering with so many sort of mysterious things, and you've been able to really dive in and heal at the greatest depths from the inside out. You're a true example of what's really possible.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me today. Your love following you, and the information and the education, your wisdom that you share. You're so generous, and I'm so grateful to you for that. And thank you for letting me be a part of this today.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to get in touch with you on Facebook, is that the best way?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm on Facebook as Robin Steinfeld, so you can feel free to, you know, message me if there's any way that I can help or support. And you're brilliant, Joyce. I mean, you know, you are a wealth of knowledge. So
Thank you. Thank you.
anyone would be in wonderful, amazing hands with you.
Thank you. So thanks for listening, everyone. Teaching you how to nourish, detoxify, and rejuvenate your bodies naturally, as Robin so eloquently has done, from the inside out is what I do. Helping you to experience a life of freedom so you can make the biggest difference, like Robin has, is who I am. Love you guys. Stay tuned. We'll talk soon. Bye, Robin.